All right, so in this video, we're gonna go start to finish on a Karman Ghia nose replacement. So let's get started. So right here, I already have out the new nose replacement panel. Now, this one seems to be stamped pretty nice. We'll see when we start installing it. Now this goes down to the opening for the horns. Over here, you can see my nice little unhappy face here. I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. That was for the thumbnail. But the rest of these lines do serve a purpose. So what I've done here is tried to minimize the amount of replacement metal going into the nose like I usually do, because German steel is better than, you know, this aftermarket stuff we're dealing with now that comes from who knows where. So I may cut it across here first, because I'll show you in a second here. I'm going to overlay the nose on here to check the gap with it just sitting over. But anyway, I went ahead and already pre-marked my measurements for the emblem. And then what I've done is I've gone from the edge of this line over as far as I needed to get past all this damage. And I did it equal on both sides. Then I came up here, figured out the same to try to make my shortest distance for welds. Made that equal both sides up here, then ran the tape. Same thing down here. I came over as far as I needed to get to good metal. And then where we have our horn opening down here, right where this body line comes to an end, basically this is a center point. So I just measured it over. It's 2 inches on each side of this center point. That way I can just cut what I absolutely have to and finish up right here, because like I said on that panel, it doesn't go that much further than this. So it's not like you pop the whole thing off and then go all the way down and just have welds down the sides. So with that, the next thing I'll do is I'll just hang this nose over here and show you what that looks like. Okay, so here I have it set directly over the original nose. I haven't cut it yet. Just checking to see how it all lines up. And obviously I don't need to go that far over, but you can see, you know, I'll take a good amount of it anyway from this replacement panel. But you're better off staying away from, like right here, you can see this is the factory seam. Anywhere there's been previous welding, you know, heavy body work, anything like that, stay away from it, because the metal's already been worked, and then you're gonna go back over and it's gonna be more of a pain. So we're gonna stay away from that. Now, when I push this back up here, set it back into place, it's kind of difficult to do, film and do it with one person. Use the knees, you know. All right, so let me try to hold it up in here. So bring it over, line it up with the hood, because you can't squish the hood all the way. But long story short on this is this gap is pretty even. I know I don't have it perfectly in place right now, but I did before I started filming, and it lines up pretty well. My gap seems like it's gonna be consistent all the way across where I gotta section it. So I'm pretty confident that I will be able to take it all the way back here, which would be fantastic. Just do a little straight weld across here and then come back with my spot welder, put it back like factory, quick and done. So that's where I'm gonna go with it. I'll just come in here. I'm gonna take a few more measurements of this, compare it to this, because it's better to double check everything before you do it. And just because you buy this panel to do this car and everything lines up perfectly, don't trust it for the next time. All right, so let me get those measurements done, and then I'll bring you back when I start chopping this old nose out. Okay, so just before I start cutting on this thing, I did come back here and put my measurements. I pretty well knew what they were, but what I did is I came from the edge right here where this crown is stamped, and over here 8 inches. Did the same thing over here. That's why I got my little star marks where I went. And then down here 9 3/4 from this edge to the same shallow part of the crown here, right there. Same across there. Then down here, this was 10 1/2 inches from here to there, and then here to there's 4 inches, obviously 2 inch on center with that. All right, so now that I got that cut off, the next thing I'm gonna do is just come back here with a grinder and grind this extra lip off here. No point in trying to drill these spot welds out and things. I'll just grind this off real quick. That way I'm not messing up my flange here. And then you can see where this had already pulled away from the accident damage here. Basically, I'm gonna do the same thing to these as well. I'll just lightly cut through here so that I don't go through this inner flange, and then just get this off here. Either peel it off or grind it off, one of the two. We'll see how it works out the best. Same thing this side. Obviously this one, not quite as separated. There's a little bit in here. So I'll address those, and then I'll come over here and start fitting the new nose. All right, so I've cleaned up my lips on here, you know, remove the spot welds, got that all done. And as you can see, I have it just mocked up here, quick clamp, to see how everything's gonna line up before I start cutting or anything. And right out of the gate, you can see this huge gap here. It is crowned tremendously high here. Let's see how the lighting's gonna go in here. In here, down at the bottom, I can push it up. You can see it's snug around both sides, but look at the gap in the center where the vents are. And then, so obviously on the exterior of the body, it's nice and tight. If I push this in, it'll get pretty tight. Same thing this side, tight here, and then of course you can push the bottom of it in quite a bit. But even with the bottom pushed in, you saw that gap here. So then, where did I put it? I took the original nose, lay it back up here. Let's see, try to center it up. Okay, so I got that centered up there over the new nose. And just obviously overlapping, it's gonna move it up some, but we're looking fairly good here as far as these nostrils go. So what I'm gonna do next is, you can see my Sharpie mark. I'm gonna go way outside of this, leave myself plenty of extra material, both sides, then down around here. Basically, I'm gonna cut this piece just a little bit bigger than this, and then I'll see what that is, because that way I'm not dealing with all this overlap over here, and we'll see how much closer it gets from there. So let me go ahead and chop that up. All right, so I've come and I marked out where it was when I trimmed it down the first time, and then that helped me keep it centered, because you know I got to make sure that I keep this line nice and straight. So I marked it where it was before I cut it down the second time, because it helped me keep it centered here once I got this lined up, and then I could make sure it didn't shift on me when I squished it in, and I went on the back side of it and took the Sharpie and marked down my edge on the back. Now it sits in here a whole lot better, you know, as I trim it down to get it to fit in. Fits a whole lot nicer. Obviously it's still not perfect, but you know, I do have overlap, obviously. And then this is not connected to the back panel, so this gap, you know, it's close. So now I've come and I've run my Sharpie line down here on both sides. I'll see how far off I am with that. This hood's actually latched right now. It's all the way down. And then I'll just trim it up, and then I can get this fit, and I'm just gonna have to basically just start working my way down. Once I get this like butted up basically here and here, then I can focus more on lining all of this up here for the nostril on both sides. And this might be a little bit short. I'm not sure how exactly that happened, but if it ends up being that way, that won't be hard to fix. So you can see, like if you're looking at it straight on, you see how much higher this is than this, but there again, we're overlapped, so that will drop and hopefully line us up by the time we get this all worked in here. So let me trim more and we'll keep moving forward. All right, so I'm just about to the point where I'm gonna start welding this thing in now. The hood's latched again. I've got my body line lined up just right. I just have it clamped here and here for now, because obviously can't really clamp it up here. Now, you see how this isn't lined up. This one's closer, and you can kind of see my gap. But this one, that's because when you're dealing with something like this, with all these complex curves, one little whoop, and everything goes all over the place. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna start with this line here. Lining these two up, flush at the top, straight across here, and move over here, do the same. I'm not gonna start hanging it back here and spot welding it until I get this into place, because then I can roll that lip up and down and manipulate it easier, as well as this curve here. I mean, you can move that all over the place. So the issue that it was having with these lining up. Look at that, right on the money. Now down here, if you're looking at it straight on, it's pretty close, but it's out. But the reason that I have this solid still and I haven't started trimming any of this out yet is because I need some more rigidity here until I get to that point. I like to leave this filled in so the panel's not just flipping and flopping, and it's a lot easier to line all this up. I will come back pretty much at the end, most likely, and spot weld all this back into place. Same thing for this side. Just leaving that until I get to that point. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna strip this back, weld that, and then probably manipulate this lip, spot weld it all the way across, and then just start working my way down. Because when you're dealing with any kind of metal, you weld here, it'll jump, twist, do the whole thing. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, let me get this prepped and I'll just start showing you. All right, so I got everything lined up here. I'm gonna start right here and then move to the other side. Like I said before, I'm not worried about all of this back here. I've already double checked it with the hood down. This is all good here. So what I'm gonna do is I just gotta get it flush right here at the edge. And once I've got that, then I'll go ahead and tack it in, because that's gonna set the stage for the rest of it. This very first weld on there. Just a little bit, because if it moves on me, I want to be able to break it loose if it's not going to look good, so I'm just trying to do it as small as possible. Cool it down real quick. Okay. This one's a little far back. Pop this down here. Twist in the middle. Get it where it's just where it's supposed to be. Right there. Just a hair. Alright, let me get a tack on the top of that. All right, so you can see I got my tack weld here. You can see how this is all lined up. This curve is nice and it's flush right here at the edge underneath my tack. Same thing on this side. This thing's not wanting to focus properly, but it's flush across here at the edge. Not worrying about any of this yet because I will need to come and kind of bend and twist this back into place See how this is rolled forward here. So now that that's locked down, I'm just gonna work this back in and then get this across before we start heading down. All right, so our gaps look good. The color will throw it off a little bit. It is slightly tighter here than here, which I can open that up a little bit easily after this is all locked in. But as far as how it comes across the hood, perfect. And our line is exactly where it's supposed to be. So now I'll open the hood back up and we'll spot weld that top lip. This is just a Harbor Freight spot welder. Works really good for this stuff. Man, the only downside is it's freaking heavy. Let's see here. Can get a little awkward in these tight spaces. Let's see here. Squeeze it down. Alright, so off camera, when I was doing all this up here, my spot I'd welded here was so small it just pulled it down. I ended up cutting it loose, pulling this back up, twisting it a little bit, getting this all lined up just right. So now I'm going to start just putting a couple down here. I got this flush, get this started, and like I said, just this side, that side, back and forth until I get it down here. But I do have this clamped where this body line for the nostril is dead on. Now right here you can see that stops my finger. Right here it's nice and smooth, but as I weld it and so on, you know, keep manipulating it, just working it down from the top. So here you can see that I don't have any gap. There's a little bit right there, and then it comes over, starts to come back a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just take my little air cutoff wheel and put it at an angle so I'm not opening up the gap too much, and just run it down the side and give me some space. So here I'm just working my way down, opening up the gap as I need. The biggest thing here is just take your time. Make sure your gaps are lined up. You got plenty of area for your weld to go, so when you grind it off, you still have plenty of material left. Also, you'll want to get in a hurry and just start welding and welding and welding. But as you see, I keep grabbing the air hose after every tack weld, cool it down, keep the panel nice and cool, keep my warpage to a minimum, and it all pays off in the end. It turns out so much better. So I went ahead and finished up the top here, just ran bead down both sides, ground it off, welded the channel both sides, and that's where we are. You can see it fits nice all the way around. So now where we are is here. Now you can see that this line is a little bit below this, but when they stamped this, you know, this is rolled up and this is like a hard 90. And then the same thing up here, I brought it down, got it really close. So I'm gonna deal with that at the very end. I've gone ahead and clamped, ran the Sharpie along the edge just to make sure it doesn't move on me. And I'm gonna start cutting this. Now this side, I got it really, really close, but you can see here it's high, and you can also see how this goes up, and that's the hard 90. So this is closer to like a 45. So I'll weld it up to here, and then what I'll do is I'll start cutting this back, clamp it, and then beat it down and roll this down to be the 90 like that, so it'll all come back together. But I'm gonna go ahead and lock all of this down first. I've already gone ahead and finished up this side. I'll show you on that side what I did here. I'll video more of it. But you can see here I went ahead and notched this out, and that was because this was pulled up higher, and I was able to take the pliers, put on here, and kind of beat it down some, and just twist this just enough to get this all lined back up here, and then I'll roll this in and match it up. But I got it clamped tight back here, started there, and then, you know, here getting curves, and there was a little bit of this was right on the edge of the body damage here. So you can get one panel higher than the other, and I just slowly started working it and bending it and working it all the way down. So down here at the bottom, obviously I still have to cut out the rest of the circle or oval, whatever, but I'll do that at the very end. So now we'll come over here and dress this side. Right now, I'm going to put the pliers down and got a line straight across me. Now I'll come here and I'm going to let this go and just line these up and start rolling. So it's all tacked in now, got it nice and flush, and just remember, keep the heat down. You gotta keep this panel nice and cool so you don't get all that warpage and make a big mess because you're trying to get in a hurry. And just spend a little more time making sure you got it nice and flush. You know, a little more time spent here is a whole lot of time saved on the back end trying to fix warpage and extra Bondo and all that stuff. So I took it all the way down to here. Now I'll just come back and run a bead down, and then we'll address these nostrils, cut this out, and this thing will be finished up. Well, I was gonna video this part, but I was gonna have my big fat head in the way, so I didn't even bother. So this side, because it's kind of hard to get on the very back of this lip and prep it out really good. So this side, I just took a step drill. Where do I have it? Right here. So just one of these, you can pick up a 3-pack of these for like 15, 20 bucks, whatever it is at Harbor Freight. These things work awesome. And so I just drilled through this outer lip and plug welded them. And then I started here, worked my way across, and then I had to take the hammers and basically I'd put my hammer in here on this lip, take the other hammer, smack the top, driving this down and keeping this end in here so that it's just like this lip, forcing it down that way. And as I came across, I was able to pull it down more and more and kind of reshaped this a little bit to get it all to line back up where I needed it. And then these were all in good shape, so just plug welded these up and then finish welding the seam there. So I'll grind those off now and that'll be done. This side on the top, I was able to get in here good and get some good spot welds. I was able to clean this metal up well. Tried to do it at the bottom, but they weren't sticking, so I just came back and drilled a couple here where they weren't sticking and plug welded them. So now I'll dress out the rest of these welds. Across the top here where it's not lined up, especially over here, all I'm gonna do with that is take my little 3-inch grinder here and basically just run it across, level it all out, and I'll come back and do the same in here. If you have one of these little finger sanders, I call them, just a little belt sander, you can come in here and work this really nice, really good to get in here when you're doing it like a tight bend corner. So I'll do that, then come under here and finish cutting this out, and I'll show you the final result. All right, it's all done, finished up. So I've ground all the welds down. You can see where I feathered that in. This transition here, both sides, welded, ground down. Same thing with the nostrils. They're all done. All this ground and finished, and then down here, got the opening all finished up. What I did there is I just took the old chunk of nose and then brought it down and lined up where this was supposed to be. Drew it out with a Sharpie, took my little cutoff wheel and whizzed it out, then just polished it up with a little 3-inch grinding disc and Scotch-Brite. So there you have it, a nose job complete. So if you're gonna do a job like that, you can do it over a weekend. It takes longer than you always think it does. So the biggest thing is just take your time, do it right, and the end result will be worth it. So as always, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, leave a like, and I'll see you on the next one.